What's up, everybody? It's time for another Talking Comics with me, Riot Agenda. Today is part 4 of my 10-part series of the Spider-Man 100s. We got Amazing Spider-Man 400. This probably looks like nothing on camera because this is actually a really weird cover. It's got a fancy, like, die cut. There's an embossing. I can kind of see it there. And then it's got a different cover inside. This is apparently the fancy version I got when it came out back in. I don't know if I got it, but cover date, this issue was released February 14th, Valentine's Day, 1995, which is kind of interesting considering in this issue, Aunt May dies. So this issue is the death of Aunt May, which people might be confused by as she is currently still alive in comic books. At the time of the writing, this was, Aunt May for the continuity, and she passes away. It's actually kind of a sad issue in a way. She was sick in the hospital, and she is feeling better, so the doctors let her come home. And then she and Peter go to like the top of the Empire State Building. They look at old family movies, and then after visiting the top of the Empire State Building, she feels sick, so she goes home back to bed, saying she doesn't want to go to the hospital. It's her time, and then she passes away. It was very sad. But it was later turned out that this is not Aunt May, but an actress who is playing her, who is hired by the Green Goblin to mess with Spider-Man, because that's what Green Goblin does. Because this issue is part of the Clone Saga, the notorious Clone Saga, which, it's hard to really go into this comic book without referencing the Clone Saga. So in the mid-90s, there was kind of a comic book boom, a collector's boom, and kind of like with baseball cards for a while. And a lot of these fancy type of weird covers were coming out, and a lot of collectors, people who weren't even really into comic books, were buying, these types of comic books. These were really big sellers, with the idea that one day these things would be worth a lot of money. The problem is when everybody is going out and buying the comic books, none of them are rare, so people wait a couple months and then try to resell them, and it's like, well, I already have this, so. Most notable was X-Men #1, I believe is the best-selling comic book of all time from the 90s with Chris Claremont and Jim Lee. I have 3 copies. I don't even know where they came from, but that is the exact reason. There was like 7 different covers, so collectors went and bought every single different variant, every cover, and then later tried to sell them, and it's like, everybody has this comic book. It's not worth anything more than the cover price. So it was the comic book bubble burst then. That was they made too many of these weird gimmicky covers that people would buy, thinking that they would be able to turn around and sell them and make a profit, and they couldn't. So people stopped buying the comic books. This actually led to Marvel actually almost going into bankruptcy. This is where they ended up selling the movie rights for Spider-Man to Sony, which is still kind of in contention to this day. They sold off X-Men to the Fox, Blade, I believe, to New Line Cinema, Fantastic Four to Fox as well. Most of those have come back into the house in the new MCU, but back in the day, Marvel was in such dire straits that they actually sold off a bunch of the movie rights to them. Why this matters is because Spider-Man was the only consistently well-selling title in this 90s, in this particular period where Marvel was in a lot of trouble. And Spider-Man was in the middle of the Clone Saga at this time. This comic book has Ben Reilly clone, and it has the Kane clone, and it even introduces like a 4th Spider-Man clone that'll I don't even remember what happens with that particular one. So the Clone Saga was not supposed to run for years like it did. The problem was, like I said earlier, Spider-Man was selling, and they assumed it was because the Clone Saga was helping. So they ended up stretching the Clone Saga out far longer than when it was actually supposed to run. Like I said, it was supposed to be, I think, like a 6-issue total, like maybe 6 months of stories, ended up turning into like 2 to 3 years worth of stories, where the clone they retconned it that the clone was actually Peter Parker and Peter Parker was actually the clone, and then they switched it and then they switched it back. There was no consistent storyline because the original writer left it. It was published between 4 different Spider-Man titles: Web of Spider-Man, Peter Parker Spider-Man, Spider-Man Without an Adjective, and Amazing Spider-Man. So a lot of writers were like doing like this. Whoever wrote Web of Spider-Man always wrote part 1 of the 4-part series. So it was multiple different writers writing multiple different comic books, trying to tie in with each other. Editors saying we need more. Spider-Man's the best one, so keep going with what you're doing, which muddles the storylines, and it was just an absolute mess. The original like villain of the Clone Saga was never supposed to be the Green Goblin. Norman Osborn had been dead since like the 60s, and he was brought back to determine it was the mastermind behind it all. It was honestly a jumbled mess, which is why 400 is a little difficult to read. It's got tons of these clones in it that don't make a ton of sense. Aunt May dies, which is kind of a sad story, but it turns out it really wasn't her. So it's like this issue is in a bubble. This is actually a good issue. When you know all the backstory, this issue is pointless. Nothing in it actually really matters. Aunt May dies, but it's not really Aunt May. The clones are thinking that he's actually Peter Parker and Peter Parker's the clone. That's not true. That doesn't matter. I mean, you can say a lot of comic books don't like matter with, when a story's done, they never reference it again. It's like a lot of this is completely retcon to not matter. So it's frustrating. Like I said, in a bubble, it's great. On her deathbed, Aunt May mentions that she knows Peter is Spider-Man. Like she realized it and was really proud of him. Like that's all really good. Spending the last week of her life with Aunt May, Aunt May spending her time with Aunt Anna, Mary Jane, who was pregnant at the time, another thing that's part of the Clone Saga. There's a lot to it. This is it's such a interesting time in Spider-Man's history to have this story. I did think it was kind of funny that there's an introduction by Stan Lee in it, and he talks about how Spider-Man almost wasn't really published. He had to push really hard on the printers to get it going, and that it's amazing we made it to issue 400. Here's to see you in 1000, which is why we're doing this video series. Unfortunately, Stan Lee is not with us. You won't get to see issue 1000, but issue 400, it's really hard to rate because, like I said, in a bubble, it's really good. J.M. DeMatteis DeMatteis, something like that, is the writer. And it's got 3 different stories in it. Mark Bagley does the main story. It's called The Gift, where Aunt May dies. The second artist, it's the same writer, and then the second story is John Romita Jr., who is actually still drawing Spider-Man comics to this day. He'll be doing the Spider-Man 1000 cover, the standard cover, which is not very good looking, honestly. I'm definitely going to be trying to get a variant and not the standard cover. And then the third story is with the same writer and Tom Grummett, which actually is goes back to the burglar. Burglar gets another mention. And yeah, so it's the middle story is one that's going to run in the other 4 different Spider-Man titles. It's a backup story. It's really not even worth mentioning. So in a bubble, I would probably rate this 8 or 9, even though there's really no action. It's very emotional. I feel bad when Aunt May died, even though I know it's not her. Knowing that really none of it matters, 6. Like I said, it still made me feel emotional, even though it didn't matter. I knew it wasn't real. It was still well done. So this is definitely a tricky one to rate. And then another side note I wanted to bring up. This looks familiar. This is Spider-Man 100. I did not get myself a copy, but this week, on Wednesday, Marvel reprinted the first issue 100. And what's cool about these reprints is they reprinted completely. So they even have the old style ads. So it's not the new ads you would see. It's the comic book, but with the old timey ads. So I had to get it. I was I know I have 100 in a couple different trade paperbacks over there, but I thought it was cool that I actually have a copy of issue 100, even though it'd be technically a 7th printing or some nonsense. These are technically called facsimile editions, but so hopefully you enjoyed issue 400. If you have 400, you have read it, let me know what you think in the comments. Otherwise, make sure you like and subscribe to these videos. But until next time, I'm done with this conversation.